Thank you, guys. Oh, wow. Thank you very, very much to our very lively studio audience and to all of you guys watching right now across social media and internets. I'm Jeff Durbin. This is Next Week. You guys ready for the show tonight? Very important subjects we're talking about tonight, guys. We're talking about Neo-Marxism. We're talking about racism. Very special guests for you guys. But first, let's start with some news, shall we? All right. So, very good. Very good. All right. Raul Castro steps down as president of Cuba, saying that he and his brother Fidel achieved the greatest thing for future generations, getting Havana Unana stuck in America's heads. A new theory suggests the rapture may actually take place on April the 23rd. You guys ready for that? Yes. A lot of people are hoping for this, including conspiracy theorists, numerologists, and everyone who forgot to do their taxes. During the hearings last week, Mark Zuckerberg got reprimanded for censoring pro-Trump vloggers Diamond and Silk as if they were terrorists. They said, Diamond and Silk is not terrorism. Diamond and Silk is a stripper app, right? We don't understand the internet, they said. Now, former FBI Director James Comey says that President Trump is a serial liar who is morally unfit to be president. Trump responded by saying, so what you're saying is that I'm a perfect fit to run the FBI? A nun who was fully dressed in her habit was carjacked at gunpoint in D.C. The suspect was found quickly, arrested, and sentenced to 10 years of Catholic school. The winner of the Mega Millions lottery is a food production manager in New Jersey. His payout after taxes, man, is $220 million. He said all of their dreams have now come true. They can go on vacation, they can put the kids through college, and of course, best of all, they can leave New Jersey. Police arrested a man in Atlanta for stabbing his manager after being fired. They should have known, of course, that this guy was going to be trouble because during his interview, he was asked, where would you like to be in the next 5 years? He said, stabbing my boss after he fires me. Kim Kardashian spent this past weekend going to her 20th year high school reunion, and one thing you can definitely say about Kim is that the girl who was voted most likely did. She did. A shocking number of millennials don't know much about the Holocaust. 66% actually don't know what Auschwitz was, and 22% haven't even heard about the Holocaust, which is why we thought we'd invite our old friend to come teach it to everyone. Daniel, would you do the honors of introducing our old friend?
Sure. Now, for those that have never met this man, he might seem a little strange to you, but he's a very good man. He's also really, really old, so be respectful. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our elder, Mortimer.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
No, I'm not the president, Mortimer.
I've been told you youngins, you guys don't know much about the Holocaust. Is that true?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's actually true. We wanted you to tell us about it, about the Holocaust.
Were you not listening in class? What are you, some kind of degenerate street urchin, huh?
Okay.
You some kind of dumpster bottom, huh?
No, they don't actually teach it much anymore.
Oh, okay, well, what do you mean? How do you not teach young minds something so tragic? You're all spending too much time on the MySpace. Do you eating Tide Pods and all that. You know what my generation knows about the Holocaust? You know why?
Because you were taught about it?
No, because we were there. Look, I'll teach you, you degenerate gutter snipe. It was a dark time in the world. Socialism was running rampant. I mean, people actually started to think that socialism was a good thing. Can you believe anyone thinking that? I mean, who in the world thinks that socialism is a good thing? I dare you. Think about one person, anybody.
Well, actually, there's a lot of people right now that think that.
What? Socialism? No, it can't be. You heard something else. You heard something else. I tend to miss hearing things myself, Daniel. Like yesterday at the nursing home, my nurse said I could have extra Jell-O. I thought she said, throw the Jell-O in my face and escape the nursing home as fast as you can.
Well,
happens to the best of us, Daniel.
actually, socialism is a really popular thing right now. People like Bernie Sanders.
Well, back in WW2, you had a guy, his name was Hitler, and he said to make the Jews the enemy. I mean, could you imagine a group of religious people being blamed for absolutely everything?
That I actually can't imagine, because Christians are being blamed for everything in this country, including ruining New York with chicken.
What?
Yeah.
No, it can't be the case. This is a Christian nation. Why, just the other day, I just sent a load of money to that fine man, Jim Baker.
Well, Mortimer, you really shouldn't send money to Jim Baker.
Well, what's wrong? You don't like the end times gravy? What are you, some kind of gutter snipe?
I prefer the cheese with the broccoli in it, you know?
Some kind of street urchin? He's always been so trustworthy with money.
Well, Jim Baker actually went to jail for fraud, for stealing people's money.
What?
Yeah. He's also divorced. Him and Tammy Faye got divorced. Didn't you know about that?
Tammy?
Yeah. She's actually passed away, Mortimer. I'm sorry.
Oh, good grief. So, do you want me to tell you about the Holocaust?
Do you have anything else you could tell us about the
Yeah,
Holocaust?
I got something I know you're not experiencing these days. Millions and millions of innocent people were murdered. Now, I dare you to tell me about...
Abortion?
What's that?
Abortion?
Pardon?
Abortion.
Pardon?
Over 60 million babies being murdered in this country since Roe v. Wade?
Well, I can't even... No wonder the schools don't want to teach about the Holocaust. They want to repeat history. This is insane, Daniel. I got to go back to the nursing home and call up my old friends to see what we can do. If you need me, Daniel, you street urchin, you can contact me on my twerker. I'll be right back.
Twitter.
Sign up for Apologia All Access right now. You'll get shows, after shows, and Apologia Academy. And if you don't, I'll jump. I have weak knees. So this is a lot scarier than it looks. Okay?
What's up, guys? Welcome back. Welcome back to all of you guys watching us across the internet, social media right now. I encourage you guys to like and share this very important episode. It's time, as always, for the Blend of the Week. We always have delightful blends here at Apologia Studios. This one is called the Dark Roast. Dark, like the hearts of Planned Parenthood. We don't actually drink this one, so... All right, everybody, welcome back to Next Week. Thank you guys for watching this. It is, of course, no secret that here at Next Week we have some pretty unpopular opinions when you line them up besides the popular and the prevalent opinions of our day. For instance, here's 3 items. There you go, 3 items. The Bible, a vape cigarette, and the TV show Breaking Bad. Now, out of those 3, the popular opinion loves Breaking Bad. But we're the unpopular opinion, and we love the Bible, vape, and Breaking Bad. You see, we understand that when we walk into the room today, we represent a historic and now unacceptable ideology of the past. We represent here historic Christianity and the remnants of the foundation of Western culture. Basically, we're like a doctor walking into a Scientology meeting about healing. We know what the sick actually need, but Scientologists are too busy poking people and calling it a touch assist. Now, as much as the world would like to make us into the proverbial redheaded stepchild, there can be no denying the fact that Christianity has been the driving force behind the healing of the world and the advancement of society. For example, in every nation that the gospel has penetrated, slavery has been abolished, equality has been introduced, and the very creation of television was influenced by a Christian invention. But then Christians started inventing stuff like this.
Wonder Bible presents the entire Old and New Testaments in an unforgettable presentation. Simply turn on your Wonder Bible and a pleasant voice reads the book to you. Just listen as the words on the page come alive.
Faith comes from hearing the message, and the message is heard through the Word.
I just gotta say it. There's already an app for that. It's called the Bible app. It was the biblical worldview in Wilberforce that challenged slavery and led to its ultimate demise. Christianity has been the force that led to the equality between tribes or races and equality with women. Modern science got its explosion from the foundations that Christianity provided, and no, we're not talking about the Big Bang. It was Samuel Morse's specifically Christian worldview and his being catechized by Christian parents that led to the internet. And it wasn't just technology, science, and equality. Take the American experiment, for example. Christians started this nation. Early on in American history, it was the understanding of the laws and standards of God's justice that informed the minds of Americans. The Bill of Rights and the Constitution, they were founded not upon atheistic, socialistic, or Marxist principles, but upon Christian principles, created equal. Freedom to practice the Christian religion without interference by the state. The biblical view of separation of church and state as two distinct realms under God. The right to defend yourself against evil. Thou shalt not steal as the basis of private property rights and protection against warrantless searches and seizures like this. Cringe and #ew. The right of the accused to not be required to help their accuser, therefore the right to remain silent. You could thank Christianity for that one. All of this comes from Christianity and biblical standards of social justice. Now, while not a perfect history, aka the Wonder Bible, and a history, of course, filled with broken people being transformed by the power of the gospel, there can be no question about the fact that the culture of the West was fundamentally the culture that Christianity and gospel principles gave us. Now, that was yesterday. Now it's today. Today, Western and Christian culture is looked upon much like The Cosby Show. It used to be adored and enjoyed, and now it's only shown on a network at 2 a.m. Of course, the big difference between The Cosby Show and Christianity is Christianity still tries to live by the morals it teaches. We have a lot of homeschool kids in our audience, and they're saying, what's The Cosby Show, right? Now, there is so much criticism and attack upon the biblical worldview that people are wondering how we could have lost something so valuable so quickly. If Christianity was a car, then we were confident when we left it parked in a safe spot, and we were sure we would never lose it.
Dude, where's my car? Where's your car, dude? Dude, where's my car? Where's your car, dude? Dude, where's my car?
So, how did we get to a place in which Christian principles of social justice and law are constantly criticized and attacked and even criminalized?
New tonight, Governor Malloy has just signed a new law, and it outlaws so-called conversion therapy in Connecticut.
Yeah, the state Senate passed that bill unanimously today. It passed the House overwhelmingly last week. Conversion therapy claims to change a person's sexual orientation or gender identity, but it has been proven in a number of studies not to work. The bill took effect immediately with the governor's signature tonight.
Now, everywhere we turn, we see groups of people criticized and set in opposition to one another. The poor versus the rich, feminists versus the patriarchy, blacks versus whites, climate change advocates versus so-called science deniers, and people that think that the moon landing was a hoax versus reality.
You really like it, don't you? You're the one who said you walked on the moon when you didn't. Calling the kettle black, if I ever thought of it. Saying I misrepresented myself. Away from me. You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
Hashtag don't ever mess with Buzz Aldrin. Ever. Now, well, it turns out there is actually a very well-known nefarious view that has been working hard since the last century to eradicate the influence of Christianity by destroying its proxy, the culture of the West. You see, that view historically is called Marxism. You and I know its manifestation today by its popular cultural avatars, cultural or Neo-Marxism, social justice warriors, race baiters, and Bernie Sanders. All right, friends, crash course here. Who was Karl Marx? Well, besides looking like Kris Kringle and Satan's love child, he was the degenerate philosopher who was known best for promulgating one of the most destructive forces of economic and social theories known to mankind in his famous book, The Communist Manifesto. Communism killed so many people in the last century that it is honestly hard to imagine anyone would be heralding the propaganda of this literal fool. That'd be like eHarmony begging to set up O.J. Simpson on a date. It just doesn't make sense. Now think about it. Communism has killed over 100 million people. Global warming? 0. Tide Pods? 3 people. Only 3. Now the kill list from communism far outweighs those from many other bad things, and yet everyone lines up to it like it's the McDonald's of governments. Communism, over 100 million severed. Karl Marx died in obscurity, but his ideas were picked up later and tried and then failed. Yet it tries again and again. It's like anytime Amy Schumer puts out a new movie. It didn't work the first time. What makes you think it'll work this time? It's important to know Marxism's 2 primary enemies, Christianity and capitalism, summarized: destroy faith and private property. Now, early on, Marxists attempted to create conflict in society between the proletariat, the oppressed workers, versus the bourgeoisie, the oppressor. That was the scenario. The conflict was there. The problem was economic Marxism failed in a culture that was influenced by the biblical worldview with its attempt to put the haves and the have-nots against each other. See, it doesn't work in communities that believe the Bible when it says, if you don't work, you don't eat. Also, not to be a sluggard and to do what you do to the glory of God and with all of your might. Also, that little bit about communism killing tons of people, that doesn't help so much.
So look, what happened was that by the end of the 1960s, the evidence that communism was a catastrophic failure was so overwhelming that even the French intellectuals, and we'll return to them later, like because the French have a very long-lasting and powerful public intellectual tradition, and so intellectuals there are very influential. Even the French intellectuals like Sartre, Jean-Paul Sartre, the famous philosopher, had to admit by the end of the 1960s that the Stalinist, communist, Maoist experiment and all of its variants, not just those particular dictators, but all of its variants, was an absolute catastrophic failure. And then what happened was the postmodernists came onto the scene, and they were all Marxists. But they couldn't be Marxists anymore because you couldn't be a Marxist and claim that you were a human being by the end of the 1960s. And so they started to play a sleight of hand, and instead of pitting the proletariat, the working class, against the bourgeoisie, they started to pit the oppressed against the oppressor. And that opened up the avenue to identifying any number of groups as oppressed and oppressor, and to continue the same narrative under a different name. It was no longer specifically about economics. It was about power.
See, it morphed. It changed strategy. It made it the oppressed versus the oppressor, and now in America the conflict is the proletariat, minorities, homosexuals, versus the bourgeoisie, white males, Christians, and capitalists. Cultural Marxism, or Neo-Marxism now, is the social criticism of society done by the left, rooted in the techniques of Karl Marx. You see, he was not only an economist, but a sociologist. And historically, they have employed a very effective tactic known as critical theory. Critical theory seeks to criticize society so much that people are too demoralized to defend their own culture. This critical theory is how Marx's own criticisms of class, religion, and the family were adapted to nearly everything that exists in society. Critical theory means to criticize. Criticize everything. It's basically the theory of the mother-in-law. Only in this case, everybody and everything in society becomes the daughter-in-law, and every day becomes a tension-filled Thanksgiving dinner. The goal is to divide the church, empower and enlarge government, limit private property and to destroy Christianity via a proxy, the culture of the West. In 1933, the Marxist Frankfurt School fled from German society to New York. They applied, ultimately, critical theory. The popular Studies in Prejudice led to the influential book in 1950 called The Authoritarian Personality. This is the book that argued that the American people exhibited many fascist traits and that people who supported the traditional American culture were psychologically imbalanced. You ever wonder why we hear the constant refrain now of fascist and about the popular diversity and sensitivity training? Critical theory has overwhelmed us and effectively brought us to our knees. Neo-Marxism thrives on creating class warfare. It must destroy society and recreate it. Sounds something like a comic book villain would try, right? That's the go-to strategies for all villains, like Lex Luthor, the Joker, George Soros. You see, we all need to be honest. The Marxists have been very effective. Embrace it, because it's true. They have infiltrated nearly every major academic institution and the media with their corrupt worldview. Just think about it. Feminist theory, queer theory, critical race theory, eco-criticism. This is Marxism at its very best. This is how we lost so much of the assumed biblical principles over the last 2 generations. But worse yet, critical theory and racial conflict now have even been brought into the church. Due to the neo-Marxist tactics and strategies, we have the introduction of this oppressor versus the oppressed within the Christian community itself. It's made its way into the church by way of 2 discussions, race and homosexuality. The claims about white sin and white oppression and guilt are prevalent and are creating divisions, racial divisions within the Christian community and churches that honestly, I've not seen in my entire lifetime. I mean, it really is fascinating, friends. Christianity has always taught that every human person is part of the one human family. All of us have the same original parent. No, not that original parent, contrary to the atheist, the actual original parent. We're talking about Adam and Eve here, guys. The glory of the gospel is that God is reconciling the world to himself through the cross of Jesus Christ. That's where we all meet, and the ground there is level. The Bible teaches that Christ brings all the families of the earth back to God, together, every tribe, tongue, people, and nation. There is neither male nor female, slave nor free, Jew nor Greek. We're all one in Jesus. The Christian worldview rejects the notion that we amplify our distinctions to the point of division. It says that we're one.
So MLK grew up in the Ebenezer Baptist Church, again, a son of the Black Baptist Church and the Black Baptist Church tradition. He goes off to Morehouse College, and really in his early days of Morehouse, he underwent a kind of a crisis of faith, in which he was wondering whether or not the faith that he had been taught within the Black Baptist Church tradition really could adequately address the social sufferings of his people, African Americans, and so he struggled with that. He also was in some ways embarrassed by what he thought of as the emotionalism of the Black Baptist Church tradition. And so he went to Morehouse, and he struggled for the first few years of his days at Morehouse. Was an average to below average student at best. And then he met a guy named George Kelsey. And he took an Intro to the New Testament course under George Kelsey. And it was there that he began to have his first real engagement with what we might call Protestant liberalism. But it was Protestant liberalism that was critically engaged. In other words, it was Protestant liberalism that used the categories of Protestant liberalism in order to try to address the black social situation. And that's when King sort of regained confidence in the ability of pastoral ministry and the gospel to address the black social situation. And he sort of said, well, look, if this is what ministry is, then I want to be a minister.
Now, of course, I have to say say this. We are so grateful for the equality and the social change that took place as a result of Dr. King's and many people's labor. But I have to say that Protestant liberalism denies the deity of Christ, the physical resurrection of Jesus, even that Christ even actually existed. It denies the inerrancy of Scripture, the inspiration of Scripture. That is not an appropriate Christian launching point for social justice. It's just not. Now, that's not to say, though, that tribalism and hatred doesn't exist and doesn't need to be addressed. By the way, that's how we should describe the sin and evil of racism. There's only one human race, y'all, and all of us, red and yellow, black and white, come from the very same place. Racism is ultimately hatred. That's the biblical definition. Hatred for another human being because of the color of their skin is a wicked sin that people will be judged by God for and be put in hell for. See, the answer is not creating racial division within the church of God, the kingdom of God, and condemning an entire color for the sins committed by people of their color. The answer is the gospel. Repentance over our sinful condition and the hatred in our hearts for other image bearers of God. Hatred like this.
Look at this fuckery in a black-owned restaurant. Look at the fuckery. Y'all together, like in an intimate relationship? Really?
What's up?
You couldn't find no black woman? Like, you had to go that low to the lowest rung of humanity? If they're even humans, it's arguably that they're even humans.
Hatred that's like this.
I don't like Mike. Well, okay, I'm going to say that he's, looks like he's native Texas, and being from Texas, I would have to support that. But I don't like him on the fact that he's black. Absolutely not.
David?
Please.
And I knew this was going to come.
Please,
I don't like him because he's black.
Are you even serious right now?
Thing, I'm a minority, but I got a problem with
I was going to say.
Please.
Hold on. You're like a minority yourself.
Absolutely.
And brace yourselves for this one, guys. Hatred like this.
You said fucker! You never said the United States call me a nigger! For no reason. Fuck you, hunky! Fuck you! You're a hunky! I could be a hunky, motherfucker! Be a cracker, and you're a fucking nigger and you're Africa!
This is evil. Evil that people of every color have to contend with. It's not the only evil we need to seek God's standards and justice over. As Christians, we ought to condemn the injustice of police brutality, abuse of power, and the unjust killing of young black men. That's called murder. The solution is condemning the unjust standards that police officers are holding to. The solution is, of course, the gospel. However, we have revelation from God that tells us what true justice looks like. We aren't going to arrive at true social justice when we ignore God's revealed standards and appeal to the class warfare and arbitrary standards of socialists, leftists, Marxists, humanists, and arbitrary standards of the world. Don't believe that there is a concerted effort to create class warfare and the narrative, the Neo-Marxist narrative of the oppressor and the oppressed? Well, maybe I'm just being an alarmist. Maybe I just have a tinfoil hat. Maybe I'm just slightly out of touch. And maybe I'm just ignoring all the facts. White people are dangerous, y'all. The horror story. We need Christ. We need His cross. We need His forgiveness and His power to resurrect and make all things new. In Scripture, in the New Testament itself, we find racial conflict. It's there. We find racial animosity. We find the collision of foreign cultures. We never find the inspired apostles appealing to the standards of the world that amplify our differences and create division and bitterness. What do we find? We find this word, but now you must put them all away. Anger, wrath, malice, slander, and obscene talk from your mouth. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices, and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge after the image of its Creator. Here, there, listen closely to this, is not Greek and Jew. circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, free, but Christ is all and in all. Put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving one another as the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony, and let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called, listen closely, in one body. And be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another, singing in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. And whatever you do in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. Brothers and sisters, friends, that's how you solve the problem of racial animosity and brokenness. It is only available through Christ. That's it right now for next week, guys. Stay with us. Very important guest coming up right now. Thank you for watching. Like and share the episode. We'll see you in a minute. All right, welcome back, everybody. This is truly a privilege. It's an exciting moment for us on next week. We have a very special guest with us right now. He is David Horowitz. Many of you guys know him. He's a very popular cultural commentator, a prolific author. He's written a new book. It's The Black Book of the American Left, Volume 9. Very, very important speaker in our day. Please welcome David Horowitz. David, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you.
So it's a pleasure.
The book is called Ruling Ideas.
Okay.
And it's the two ruling ideas of the last 200 plus years. One is the American idea, which is, of course, rooted in the Judeo-Christian tradition. It holds individuals to be equal in the eyes of their creator and endowed by their creator, not by government, with inalienable rights, particularly the right to liberty. And it puts individuals at the center. Since we're all creatures of God and all equal in his eyes, government has to respect that and treat us equally. And so it's based on the idea of individual accountability, individual merit. I mean, Martin Luther King, summed it up as well as anybody when he said that we need to judge people by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. The left, the other ruling idea is that of Marxism, which is responsible for the deaths of more than 100 million people in peacetime, not in war, but in peacetime, and the incarceration in gulags of hundreds of millions of people. Marxism failed, but it's alive and well because it's really a crypto religion. It says the world, it really parallels the Christian story. The world is a fallen place. It's corrupted by money, by private property, and so forth. and there will be a redemption. Only the difference is that for Christians, the redemption can only come from a divinity, because it's we human beings who are responsible for the mess. The root cause of all social problems is us. When I left the left, I regarded myself as a Marxist revolutionary when I was in the left, until the Black Panther Party murdered a friend of mine and caused me to stop in my tracks and rethink. When I left the left, what I wished that I had was a doctrine of original sin. The leftists think that people are good, and that therefore you don't need government, you don't need laws, you don't need morality, you don't need religion. Whereas the American view, I can't remember which founder said that having a democratic republic requires a virtuous citizenry. That's the basic idea. These are the two ideas that dominate our lives. And the Marxist idea has now seized the Democratic Party as a Marxist party. Identity politics is what's called cultural Marxism. Marx divided the world into oppressors and oppressed. But it was capitalists, it was owners of capital who oppressed what he called wage slaves. He didn't believe in the freedoms that actually had entered societies at the end of the 18th century. But of course, the working class failed to be a revolutionary force. It's actually the working class voted for Trump. So leftists came up with this cultural Marxism, which is called identity politics now. And that is that there are races that oppress, genders that oppress, sexual orientations. If you're a straight white male, you're oppressor on 3 counts. This is a totalitarian ideology in itself and will destroy America unless it's defeated.
Very much so. And I think that is a critical thing to get here, David. And I don't know that we take it as seriously as we ought to. And I think because we haven't, David, we find ourselves in the place that we are now. And I mean, in just American culture in general, I'm talking about the history of the West, fundamentally, you said it, Judeo-Christian values. But I mean, I'm speaking even here as a pastor, as someone who's a Christian in the Christian community. This stuff has impacted culture. It's in academia, it's in media, and it's even now infiltrating the Christian church itself. Can you tell us, because I think
it's a strategy that an Italian Stalinist who died in Mussolini prison, Antonio Gramsci, developed. He saw that the working class wasn't going to make the revolution. So he talked about the institutions of the culture, that if you seize the universities, the churches, if you seize them through ideas, you could revolutionize society. And that's really what cultural Marxism is about. And let me, when I was sort of summarizing at the beginning, I should have mentioned that it's a Christian heresy. It's the heresy of Pelagius, the Pelagian heresy, that you can create God's kingdom on earth. That it's the story of Babel, where you can build a tower to heaven. And it ignores the fact that God placed an angel with a flaming sword at the gates of Eden to prevent human beings from returning. Because actually, we were given paradise. That's what the Genesis story tells us. And it was better than socialism. You didn't die, you didn't have pain, the fruit dropped from the trees and so forth. But what was forbidden was to know good and evil, really to know evil. And human beings are ornery, and they disobeyed, and their disobedience caused the fall. So Marxism is really very much, it's the philosophy of Lucifer. It's a revolt against heaven. Saul Alinsky dedicated his book to Lucifer, as the first rebel. I mean.
So I'd like to ask you about that. When you talk about your history as a Marxist, you came out of that. You have a solid understanding of some of the ideology, the tactics, methodology of cultural Marxists, neo-Marxists, what have you. Are we being tinfoil hat people, conspiracy theorists, when we point to this obvious connection between Marxist ideology and all of the class warfare that we see today, and even some of it's
race war.
Yeah.
It's gender war. That's what it's about today. That's the influence of cultural Marxism. The working class are Trumpers. It's very odd to say, but it's true.
Yeah.
And it's not a hidden tactic or strategy. This is a straight ideological one. My complaint about conservatives, and it's a complaint about religious conservatives as well as political ones over the last 30 or 40 years, is they're too damn polite. I was introduced when I first left the left. One of the first conservative groups I spoke to was the Cardinal Mindszenty Foundation in St. Louis. Mindszenty was a Catholic cardinal who, when the communists took over Hungary, hid inside the American, he didn't leave the country. He went inside the American embassy and became a symbol of the fight against communism. When I was introduced at the Mindszenty Foundation, this would be, in the 1980s, they introduced me. This is David Horowitz, a former peace worker and civil rights activist. Christians, conservatives are too damned polite. Don't call them liberals. They're bigots. They're vindictive bigots. They hate religious people. They hate America, and they're at war with it all the time. I mean, call them what they are. Fight fire with fire.
Well, I think I think, David, one of the important things I want to point to is that this is an ideology that had a very, very long plan. We talk about things like the Long March. This is not something that sprang up and people thought they could implement in a matter of a couple of years. They understood that you could not undo the culture that Christianity had created. That you could not undo the traditional culture of America. You couldn't undo the ideas of private property, faith in God, equality amongst people, all that. You couldn't undo that in a matter of years. It was going to be a long march to get there. They understood that this was going to be something that had to take place over a long period of time.
Well, that's true, but it develops through the generations. The power of the left is the idea. It is a religion. It believes in a redemption. And the difference between it and a legitimate religion, like Christianity, is it believes the redemption can take place by giving power to human beings in the state. And that's why it winds up as totalitarianism. They want to remake human beings to fit their mold, and they need the power to do it. But that if you don't see it as a heresy that way, you're not going to be able to fight it.
Yes.
And they don't have to have elaborate. Look, they control. I wrote a whole book about how they control the whole charitable universe, all the great philanthropic foundations, MacArthur, Ford, Rockefeller, Carnegie. They're all leftists. They're all part of this fight against America. They have overwhelming cultural power. The universities are hosts to that. The universities are indoctrination centers for this ideology.
Right. What would be a good place to go to get an overall understanding from your own works of the history of Marxism into cultural Marxism, neo-Marxism, and the strategies of the Marxists and the political left, so that we can have a good understanding of what to look for in whatever segment of society it's in, whether it's in the state, the political realm, or even something that's coming into the church. What's a good place to get an overall good understanding?
There are two volumes of the Black Book of the American Left that I would recommend. One is the present one, Ruling Ideas. There are long essays on on Marxism and why I left the left. So it's an indictment of Marxism. And there's also an essay called Slavery in the American Idea, which is about the slavery experience and the virtues of America. And another one of the series is volume 6. It's called Progressive Racism. So, you know, it's a much more complex history, but, you know, in the simplistic white versus black, white bad, black good universe. So that's what you have to challenge. That's their tactic.
Okay.
They don't have to sneak into organizations. They come in frontally now. They're telling you what they think, and the problem is that too many people are susceptible.
Yes.
To the message. It's a very seductive message. They're for social justice. No, they're not. They're for a totalitarian state. They want to completely shut down conservatives. That they would destroy religion. The first thing that the Bolsheviks did when they came to power in Russia was they burned 100,000 churches.
So you say that one more time, David. The first thing the Bolsheviks did was what?
They burned 100,000 churches, and then they set up a church, a people's church, to carry on their propaganda. And when you understand that their ideology is very much a crypto-religion, I mean, they're talking about, a corrupt world which is going to be redeemed, where everybody will be one. I mean, that's a religious message. And that's what you have to fight.
Wow. That's powerful. David Horowitz, thank you so very much, sir, for giving us this time today. This has been an important discussion to have, and I encourage everybody to get to know this history, get to listen to some of David's lectures on YouTube on this particular subject. I think it'll really be informative for you guys. David, it's been an honor today, sir. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
All right. God bless you. All right, guys, that was it for this portion of Next Week. Do stay with us, guys. Very important message on the other side. We'll see you all over there.
What's up, guys? Zach Conover here with End Abortion Now. I just wanted to talk to you guys about the process of registering your church, signing up at endabortionnow.com in order to get your training and materials so that your church can start your own mercy and justice ministry, going to the abortion clinics and bringing the gospel there and helping mothers and fathers. To start off with, you're going to go to endabortionnow.com. There'll be a little tab there that'll say sign up your church. It'll take you to the next page where you'll go through and you'll agree to a standard Christian statement of faith. You'll enter information about yourself, your church, your pastor. You'll hit the submit button, that'll go off. So once we've spoken with your pastor, once we confirmed that they are aware and supportive of what you're doing, at that point you'll receive an email. The email is going to have the setup instructions in order to have your login account that you're going to use at endabortionnow.com, where you can view the training resources and the video material that's meant to be gone through in the context of a small group of your church. And so you'll have access to that training material, but then at that point we'll also be packaging up your ministry kits, complete with your gospel tracts, your cone for voice amplification, your wristbands, and then 2 signs. One, the bigger sign with the graphic image, and then the image of the child in the womb, as well as the babies are murdered here sign, and on the flip side of that one, the we will adopt your baby. So those are the things that'll be in your ministry kit. Thank you guys so much for watching this, for partnering with us, for receiving these materials. We're so happy that we get to send them to you, and we're overjoyed for your partnership in this ministry. So thank you so much, and we look forward to hearing from you guys.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you all watching tonight. Thank you all for liking and sharing the episode. Thank you to our lively studio audience today. You guys are amazing. Hey, I have some good news for you. We receive reports from across the country on a regular basis of children that have been saved because of the mission of endabortionnow.com. And just last week here, through our local church's mission at the abortion mill, we had a child was saved. It's truly a blessing. It's a humble blessing to be a part of all of this work. And if you don't know, if you're new to the show right now, the heartbeat of this entire show, what it's really all about is to have regular engagement with the culture of death. You've seen that throughout all the episodes, and to equip Christians across the country to be a part of the same work that we are, and that is a gospel-centered Christian mission against the culture of death and to the ultimate end of abolishing, criminalizing, banning, ending abortion in our nation once and for all. That's the goal. You all can get equipped for free training, free resources at endabortionnow.com. I want to encourage every one of you guys to go over to endabortionnow.com. You can go there, you can get signed up at your local church, you can get training resources, get equipped to do the same work that we are. Our local church has seen about 100 children saved that we know of from death at the local abortion mill. We have churches that have saved over 140 children. I mean, it is, at this point, there's no way to calculate it all. You can do it too by going to endabortionnow.com, get equipped, get signed up there with your local church. You can contact your legislator straight from endabortionnow.com. Pre-made letter, it's all set. You just type your information in. Very simple. Click a button. It communicates with your local legislature at the click of a button. It's instant. Also, if you go to endabortionnow.com, you can help us to meet our final goal, so we can basically be funded to equip local churches to put the message of the gospel into the area of abortion across the country, to flood the media, to equip Christians really now around the world with local ministry to abortion mills. As a matter of fact, I forgot to say this. This is a really important thing. Just got word recently, this last week, that people who have been equipped from endabortionnow.com, they've been encouraged by our ministry in Australia, are now part of the work to save lives in Australia from death, the death of abortion. So that's a huge praise God, everybody. That's a big thing. You can help us to equip Christians all over the world now. It's literally in many nations. In many nations, you can help us by helping us to get to our ultimate goal. We're nearly there. You can go there by giving and give at endabortionnow.com. So that's it for this week. We will see you guys on the next episode of Next Week with Jeff Durbin. Don't forget to like and share the episode, everybody. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. Thank you.